Good morning, or if you're in the East Coast time like I am, it's already good afternoon. So for some of us other side of the world people, that's it. I work for the U.S. government. I didn't do that most of my life. I've been in the business for a very long time. My close friends say I've now moved to the dark side and joined Jeff, who also worked for the business for a while and on the dark side. So we both kind of brought our experience to the government. Fortunately for me is I'm actually closer to where I came from than Jeff is. I'm not a regulator. I'm still a doer. I'm still a maker. And I'm telling you how the government's kind of getting into that business. And the government got into that business because there are a lot of scary things people can do for us that require products that don't make any money. And if the products don't make much money, then guess what? Nobody makes them. Nobody cares to make them. It's not something hot to do. So the government's got to hang this big old piece of money meat around its neck and say, who wants to come play with us to make strange and exotic products for strange and exotic diseases? Except for pandemic influenza. We have one outlier in this. Now, the nice part about this is we generally work almost completely through companies. So this isn't a government thing where the government gets to do something different. I don't get a free pass when we go to the FDA because the companies have to apply just like it's a commercial product. Now, we do have a relationship with the FDA, but we don't get a free pass. Now, if you really want to look at the Hollywood version about what we do, you can always go get the movie Contagion off of Netflix and watch that. And as with anything Hollywood, it's wrong. But it does give a lot of the basic principles and, exciting, nice people to look at and, excitement and tension and stuff like that. If you want the reality of it, anybody who's been in the business knows that you cannot develop a vaccine from grabbing something that came out of batshit that traveled on the pigs and came like that, and 3 months later you're sticking it in some lady's leg and you're putting it, we know our business doesn't work that way. So, that's the Hollywood side of it. Do we still try to do things that are very cutting edge that get that place? The answer is yeah, we do that. And if anybody wants to really talk about a rapid turnaround of how we do vaccines, anybody can look at how we almost had a pandemic in 2009 and delivered more doses into the marketplace between that and the seasonal campaign of that year than had ever been delivered to the American marketplace ever, by an order of magnitude. It was a bunch. It was tough. And it was very interesting about how we can actually bring companies together. We made it financially rewarding to them and actually pulled it off. However, what do? We are across the board on any of the threats. So we do everything from medical devices to antimicrobials. We work with diagnostic companies because when you get sick and you don't know why you're sick, it's kind of hard to tell you what to give you. Well, is it the latest disease of the day or just get a bad cold? It's hard to say. We do vaccines and we do therapeutics. So we wander into Jeff land with the complex biotechnology, and we wander into the most worst land of vaccines. And if anybody has done both of them, there's a world of difference between the two of them. What I like about this picture is it shows all the different government agencies that stick their paws into what we do. We are not an agency of one. We are an agency with everybody and their mother likes to give something. And I'd like to actually add that you notice there's a blue bar across the whole thing. And that's part of how, we interact, and that's how we view the criticality of how the FDA does things. So again, we're very much recognizing that the regulator and us have to play together. Because what is a phase 3 clinical trial of anthrax vaccine going to look like? Do we put them all in a room after we vaccinate them, give them, expose them to anthrax and see who lives? Thanks for playing. That doesn't happen. You got to look at that risk. How do you do something for something strange and exotic? So we get into strange and exotic animals and do that. And, that's been a whole new ground. We actually have our first product that's been approved using animal trials instead of people trials. So since we're doing all this exciting stuff, we have to sit down next to the hub of the world as the Congress looks at it. So I'm actually 2 or 3 blocks from the congressional offices, and we get influenced by all the politics and what goes on with that. But that's where our money comes from. On the other side, when bad things happen, they want us close at hand to tell them they can be protected and taken care of. So it kind of works out in the end. So like FDA, we are down in the center of the world as viewed by our politicians, and have, or at least on that side of the world where some of the world of pharmaceutics and biotechnology take place. That's the East Coast. The West Coast, obviously, the other, and there's places in between. I'll start talking about some of those differences that we've done. But the take-home message is BARDA's recognized that, I guess what we knew all along, that doing this is a hard business. If everybody could do this, we'd have lots of people doing this. But no, it's actually a pretty small group of people. You come to these meetings, we see people we've been seeing, that I've been seeing most of my life, all come this stuff. It's a pretty narrow community about who works on this. And it's a very profitable industry, so you're competing against going in. So we've actually tried to figure out some way to do it better. Now, we initially, when we started this, we found a lot of small companies that said they could do vaccines or do special things, and they launched in to do it, and we discovered why almost all small companies fail in this trade. They usually get bought by somebody bigger who has the money to play. And Jeff's lecture about QBD and all the other things is an indication of how hard it is and how much staff you got to do and how it's not, you know, come up and I say I got a good idea and I save 50,000 mice. And when I've saved those mice, that means I can save people too. And listen, the number of mice I've saved in my life, or saved and then killed because we had to show that they didn't die, that side of it really isn't the reality of it. It's really easy to say you can save animals. It's really hard to prove you can save people. And then you got to make the drug, and you got to make lots of it. That becomes difficult too. This is not an easy business. So we decided that we'd go out and actually partner with companies and take our portfolio, which is 150 different product lines that we're working on. So it's a lot, and actually partner with some of the larger companies that actually can apply their skills to the small companies and help kind of bridge the gap about how we do this. So we base this happening because we actually have been successful in delivering a lot of products. I mean, with our partners, we look like a small pharmaceutical company and I take that back, we're actually a mid-sized pharmaceutical company. And the research budget up until this year, we got cut. But the previous years, we had about the number 5 research budget going in the pharmaceutical business. So we were putting a lot of money in. We have products to show. We had a train. You'll notice that there are companies listed under every single one of these that show who our partners were, and you see little companies, big companies, in-between companies. We managed to pull it through, and we've learned some lessons about how to do this. And yeah, the take-home message is the government can't do it by itself, and anybody who wants lessons on that, I can introduce you to people in DOD who've been struggling with this for a very long time, and it's just hard to do. So when you engage the big guys and pull it together, they bring a lot of application, and you made them up with these innovative, smaller companies, and we think we can pull out some good things, because you can't do it all with consultants. I'm sorry, I was a consultant. I apologize to all the other consultants who make a good living helping a lot of folks, whether they're big companies or small companies. It just doesn't seem to be working. We tried very hard, and we have as many failures, we have many more failures than we had successes. Now, you can say, you know, what does that mean as far as when you have a failure? Was it the product that died? I mean, there are a lot of times that things just die because you just don't have the inertia and the mass to pull it through when you might have a legitimate project. It's not always cut and dried. You put it in the clinic and nothing works. We also work with our partners to make new places and old places new. So we spend a considerable amount of money for a pandemic because the requirement for pandemics is 600 million doses. That's 2 for every American. It's actually a little higher. It's actually 630 million doses. There are about 315 million Americans. So if we have a pandemic, you got to basically vaccinate everybody. Now, we recognize that's not going to happen, but we actually go back in and talk about companies, and we rebuild old facilities. We build brand new facilities. This shows a facility that we supported with Novartis that didn't quite make it on the last pandemic, but will be ready if we ever have another one, which we don't. So we've got some experience on how to work in these partnerships and do that. So basically what we've come together is we go out and troll around and try to get companies with new ideas for the products that are going to be helpful to the portfolio we're trying to protect against. And then we actually have started pulling together practice professionals in the business, whether they're CMOs or regular companies or whatever the case may be, and provide that to these companies as they reach certain thresholds in their product development where we know or we've seen companies stumble. And, you know, for the guys in the big companies, you know how to manage a CMO. But try a little company of 30 or 40 people, managing a 200 people CMO becomes a little bit cumbersome, and you don't always get good success. And so there's a lot of aspects of that you have to worry about. So we figured it out. And whether it's clinical trials, whether it's fill finish or something, we're going to have stuff in place. So for what we've done is we've renovated some facilities. We are building some new facilities. We're adding on to facilities that give pilot capabilities and bring a larger staff to play. And we also, as part of this, because of course in Washington everything's about the money that I had for this actually had to support the pandemic. So everybody's got to be able to make pandemic influenza, because getting to making 600 million doses is a lot. Lastly, it really has come to the attention of the government, that's the right way to put it, that a lot of jobs in this business are going overseas. And they really wanted to provide encouragement for both teaching people, bringing people to understand this and being part of the industry to keep the jobs there. So we actually have a jobs training program as part of what we do. So we went out for these Centers of Innovation for Advanced Development and Manufacturing, CIADM. I will not say the whole words anymore. I will use the abbreviation as any government clone should do. So with that in point, we have places in Texas, North Carolina, Baltimore, Maryland, and they had a couple of sister places up in Massachusetts and Lansing, Michigan, but the primary ones are Texas, North Carolina, and Baltimore. So you can see there's a lot of facilities involved by all the pretty pictures there. You can actually, when you download this, you can actually bring those up and see it pretty good. And we've got everybody to commit to provide core services to somebody, whatever the companies or companies we might have show up, and you can actually cherry pick. It's not a one-size-fits-all. It's we recognize that every product is unique. It's different, it's special. Unlike biosimilars, ours don't really fit into that very well. So we are going for something that is unusual. So each one will need something different. We have some virtual companies that could really use a lot of good project management. So, you know, that's what some companies do very well. So we've got, you know, a tier for that. You know, getting a regulatory affairs person, finding a really good, consistent one could be a problem. So we try to pick and choose all sorts of things that we thought as critical. Now, we didn't do this independently. The Department of Defense also has one of these centers, and we actually knew we were going to have some overlap, but we also looked at how we were going to share our capabilities. So we're larger in some and less so in other. Words, they only built one facility that's about the size, half the size of one of our three. So we have a little bit of a scale difference because we're protecting the American public. That's a lot of folks. They're protecting the American warfighter. And if you took everybody in the DOD today, that's about 3 million people. After they finish with the budgets, it may only be 2.5 million. So they don't have to make as much, because you don't deploy all those people. So it's a small percentage. It's a much different scale. So that's one of the things that made us do a little differently. The other thing is one of our CIADMs has now acquired a blood products division, so we get to do blood products now. So we can enhance as the normal life of our business goes on as people acquire. So let me talk about the specific companies. Or in this case, the university. The first one is Texas A&M. They have decided that they're going to start a biotech hub in College Station, Texas. And they've really kicked off. They've got a facility. The National Center for Therapeutics Manufacture, you'll see that as I talk about it a little more. They built that on their own dime. Texas ponied up money, Texas A&M ponied up money, and everybody built it. They have gotten together with a very well-known